Vikander, you star in The Danish Girl as Gerda, whose husband Einar undergoes a gender transition to become Lily. Was it a challenge to get into the mindset of a woman whose relationship changes so drastically like that?
Yes, definitely, because first of all, I think when any person goes through a very big change and something that's completely new from any experience you have, you can't really prepare because you don't know how you're reacting in certain situations, or that's how I can look back at certain things that I've gone through in my life, at least. But then, of course, I think the word that kind of kept with not only just me, but maybe Eddie and Tom and everyone involved is that thing, authenticity. And it involved a lot of preparation to be able to do this role and to kind of treasure all the story in the way that it should. And I personally, both Eddie and I met a lot of people from the transgender community, and maybe especially for me, I met a lot of friends and family and loved ones from people who have transitioned, and what you realize is that every single story is very, very different because it's human beings. And but one interesting thing that most of the people that I met wanted to tell me what was that thing that they like. The Gerda story is involved in this film in the sense that they sometimes felt like people around them didn't know that they were transitioning too, because they had to find new ground in the relationship that they had.
And that's one of the interesting things for me, at least, about this film, is that as much as it is about Lily's transition, so much of it is from Gerda's point of view as someone who is in love with someone who's going through this transition, which is probably something more people can even relate to, because, you know, for as many transgender people as there is a larger community of people who know them and love them and are also adjusting with them.
Exactly. No, that was definitely, and that was also what I was very drawn to the script because of that, because it felt like I hadn't given. I was very interested, and I knew that this was about Lily's story even before I was sent the script. I had heard, because this is a script that had been around for a long time. So it was a pleasant surprise when I did read it, and I realized that Gerda's story was told too.
You know, the script had been around for a while. You know, at what point did you become attached to it, and how much did you know about it before you finally did read the script?
I actually first, it's quite incredible. I think Gail, our producer, has been on it from day one. It's been almost 14 years or something trying to get this film off the ground, which has not been the easiest. But it was also a script that was a bit known in the industry. I had heard about it. I even had friends, people that I knew who had been involved in trying to get it made. And so when so I knew about it. I hadn't read it, but I knew that it was about this woman, Lily Elb, who are transitioning. And I remember that I read in the newspaper in London one day on the tube that Tom Hooper and Eddie Redmayne were going to do it, and I was like, oh, that's a good duo and a very good casting, and I was really looking forward to seeing it. And it was not until 2 days later when my agent called me up and said that it's a very good second female role in this film, and that's when I read it the first time, and that's about maybe 2 years ago, 1.5, yeah, something like that.
And Eddie Redmayne, as you mentioned, plays Lily. So you know, it's interesting. In parts of the film, you're acting opposite him as a man before the character transitions, and then more and more as the film goes on, you're playing opposite him as Lily, a woman. You know, did the dynamic change significantly between the two of you as actors, depending on at what point in Lily's journey you were at?
It's interesting. We did, I don't know if you've heard, it's called camera tests. You have it just before you start to shoot in any film. That's when you you don't play out scenes really, but you go behind the camera in different backdrops and try different backdrops of the film with different outfits and costumes. That was also the first day when I actually had done Lily as Einar and me in a Copenhagen backdrop, and then I went and changed my hair and I came back on. And I was looking for Eddie and I couldn't see him. And then this redhead woman turns around and I realized that Eddie's been on set for 5 minutes without me noticing. They were very happy. They thought that was the first time I saw Eddie in Lily's clothes. And the interesting was then to go back in front of the camera. And of course, we didn't, like I said, we didn't play out scenes. But the dynamic between us, probably because he had done such a good job with preparing for Lily already then, it's almost like I could see that his character started to become more herself. And with that, it also comes a certain ease to it. And for him to be able to do her character, you know, at ease already before we started to shoot, I thought it was incredible. So actually, our dynamic, we went and looked at the footage afterwards, and it was interesting. We were like women, we have such good chemistry.
There are moments in the story where Gerda is teaching Lily essentially how to be more feminine. You know, did you find yourself doing the same thing at all with Eddie Redmayne on set to help him get into character, or was he already fully prepared? I mean, you do have more experience, you know, researching the role of a woman in your lifetime.
I think he did. He's one of the most hardworking actors I worked with, and he had done all the preparation needed on day one, and the rest I don't know if I was the best one to look up when it came to female mannerisms, but it was interesting when we did rehearsals for this film, because I don't think I've ever put so much thought into gender before, and it's been extremely educational and interesting in the sense that the spectrum of male and female and what's what feels much more fluid nowadays, and I have a hard time sometimes to pick where on that line I'm at. And it was also interesting that I could try and play with as many male mannerisms as I could, and still Tom, we talked about it, he would probably not come up and say, well, you didn't come across as female in that take, because that's just what people assume, because in society we just know by the outer looks what we consider someone to be. So it was very interesting to play around with what society thinks are male or female.
Yeah, and that's one of the interesting things about a film like this and a character and story like that is you see him, or you see Lily as he's becoming a woman, putting on sort of the idea of what a woman is supposed to be, the mannerisms and the movements and gestures and voice, and you realize that it's not all women look and sound like that. Not all women, have those mannerisms. In the same way, not all men have like these strong masculine mannerisms. So it's really all a performance.
Yes, and I also thought that was so beautiful with what Eddie did, because it's almost like he peaks in his female, what we think is female mannerisms in the beginning, because Lily needs to, like an adolescence, almost like a teenage girl, and need to put on too much makeup. And like me, I was like, I never got the breasts anyway, so I stopped them for a while when I was like 13 and realized that whatever. And it's that thing of peaking, and then by the end of the film, Lily is without makeup, is in her own hair, and is in a hospital gown at one point, which is not either female or male really, and it's still just Lily. And I think that was also such a proof of what he was able to do there, that he could even like undress Lily from the mid towards the end.
As you mentioned, the film is directed by Tom Hooper, who won an Oscar, of course, for The King's Speech, and he's directed a lot of historical productions like Les Mis and John Adams miniseries. What was it like working with him on this?
Oh, it was great. Tom first of all, his passion for this project. I mean, he had been on for 7 years and had been in a very close relationship with Lucinda, our writer, and he's extremely sensitive in the way that, I mean, I already knew from the first time when I met him, which is very wonderful, which makes an actor feel safe, when you feel like somebody has very clear overview of what kind of film he wants to make and his vision. And then yet he was so extremely collaborative. I don't think I've ever had 2.5 weeks of rehearsals. To be given that is an extreme treasure. And he always let me and Eddie try things out from a starting point. And then it was Eddie and I mentioned this on set. Because we could do a scene, and when you really try to make an effort and go new directions and try things out, and it's almost like you feel that you're heading towards somewhere, but you can't, it's something that's missing. And those few times Tom kind of just walked on set and had been behind the monitor and gave us like one little key, one little word, one little change in thought that just helped us to find that way. And that makes it, he always gave us such an ease in feeling like he always saw what we were trying to do and wanted to support that, which is a freedom that means a lot to be given.
You've been getting a lot of positive attention for this performance, and it's being touted for possible awards now coming into December and award season, and that can be a fraught process. And you know, for instance, like in many cases, you've been considered a supporting actress in this role, and then the Golden Globes recently ruled that Gerda is actually a leading role. And to us awards watchers, that's a big deal. But is that something you think much about or ever have an opinion on?
I don't know, but first of all, like you said, it's award season. I don't, like, me coming from Sweden, I was like, I didn't know. I really didn't know about that it was a season just 2 years ago. So it's been quite a whirlwind just seeing what's that considered to be, or with films coming out later in the year. I hadn't even given thought about that before. And then, you know, when it comes to any kind of discussion about considered for anything makes me kind of, you know, that if that is in the air, then that is because it's considered by other people and not by me, and it's not any. So I'm trying to leave every little thing or thought like that. I'm trying just to focus on my work and be extremely happy about everything.
Did you have any kind of, you know, even a small amount of an experience like this with a royal affair a couple of years ago? Because that did end up going to the Oscars. It was nominated for foreign film.
It was so cool because, I mean, Nikolai, the director, and we had been shooting this film, and actually the place in Denmark had burned down. This historical thing happened, so we actually shot it in Czech Republic. And I remember that we sat at this had a Czech beer in a pub and talked about how, because it's only like 5 million people who live in Denmark, and we're like, what if we can get like 100,000 people going to see our film in Denmark, which is a big part of the population, by the way. So that was like a dream goal we had when we were a bit tipsy together one night. And then when we, a bit over a year later than that, found ourselves on the first time at the Golden Globes, and we were just like clutching each other's hands and like screaming, like pointing at all these people we had seen up on the screen. And it really just felt like, I mean, it was really quite unbelievable. I thought, and we both took like mental photos of everything because we thought, oh my God, this is like a one-time thing, and this is what we're going to tell our grandkids.
And the perception, at least, you know, from the outside, maybe looking in, is that you've been sort of working nonstop ever since then. I mean, just this year alone, I mean, you've got, you know, in addition to the Danish Girl, you've got Ex Machina and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Burnt. You know, how does that work for you schedule-wise? Has it been very hectic, or is it just more of a coincidence that a number of films have happened to be released in such a short span of time this year?
It is, I mean, it is a coincidence that so many films can come out in a year, because I think you can make, if you really are lucky schedule-wise, maybe 3-4 films a year. And I've been very fortunate. Well, the films that I really wanted to make, some of them I thought would not be able to, because it is tough to schedule. But I've done that now over 4 years since then. So it's more of a coincidence that a lot of them kind of bundled up closer together in release.
Other than Danish Girl, probably the film and the performance that you've gotten the most attention for this year is probably Ex Machina, and of course that couldn't be a more different film from the Danish Girl. You know, you're playing an artificially intelligent robot, and a lot of your character is created with visual effects. What was it like filming that on set compared to how it looked when the film was finished? Because it looks seamless when you watch it, but it must have been quite different when you're actually shooting it.
Well, actually, because it's actually a quite low budget film. It's an indie film, and I don't think this is a joke. Alex Garland, the director, told me, I think it's more than like half of the budget goes to creating my tummy in this film. And because we didn't have green screen, so it's not CGI in making something new, it's called replacement something. So all the things that you see with the forehead kind of resting on the skull, that was actually made every morning. I was in makeup for 4 hours. So all the line here, kind of, the face actually looked like it was put on. And I had a bald cap, quite short hair, so they could fit it all in under there. So all the lines of Ava's physicality is what is me. And then of course I didn't do a Hollywood kind of diet, and so you can see my spine like that, and so that is replacement to make it look see-through. So I just looked like a bald-headed, like Spider-Man, really.
Was that difficult to sort of get into the?
I totally forgot what, you don't think about what you look like, and then suddenly I went down to the cafeteria and people like totally freaked out, walked in. Or I remember I had my Ray-Bans on one day and my big like warm jacket, and I forgot that my face was put on my head when I walked out.
Well, I want to congratulate you on that film, on The Danish Girl, of course, on every film you've got this year, and the next 20 you've got coming out maybe next year. And I hope all those go great.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I love this little Google Hangout. It was my first.
Oh, yes, I'm happy to have been your first Google Hangout. I'm very proud. It was great talking to you.